league go from here? Lamar Jackson with a comeback performance for the ages on Monday Night Football. Where is he in the MVP debate? Plus, a preview of this week's showdown with Justin Herbert and the Chargers. And major developments with Kyrie Irving and the Nets. The team has told him, you can't be a part-time player. Malika Andrews joins us. Let's go. Hey, I'm Max Kellerman, and welcome to This Just In, a fast hour around the world of sports and how I see it. According to Nets general manager Sean Marks, quote, given the evolving nature of the situation and after thorough deliberation, we have decided Kyrie Irving will not play or practice with the team until he is eligible to be a full participant. In other words, Kyrie, get the vaccine or you can't be on the team. This one ain't that hard. Kyrie might be making this harder than it needs to be. A martyr looking for a cause. Bucs quarterback Tom Brady said today that he doesn't, quote, anticipate having a problem ahead of Thursday night's game against the Eagles. Brady said that the issue is, quote, more discomfort that should be gone in the next few days rather than a serious injury. He's leading the league, by the way, Brady, is in attempts, completions, and yards. Keeps this up, he could fall off a cliff. Who said that? Ridiculous, idiotic. The big story last night and today, of course, is the resignation of Jon Gruden as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, happening right before halftime of Monday Night Football. Here's the timeline of events that led to the resignation. Friday, reports of a racially charged email characterizing NFLPA Executive Director DeMaurice Smith with a racial trope in a 2011 email uncovered as part of a separate workplace investigation into the Washington football team. Then Monday afternoon, the New York Times reported more of Gruden's emails from between 2010 and 18 contained a pattern of homophobic, misogynistic, and sexist insults. And then Monday evening, an hour after the report surfaced, Gruden informed his staff he would step down, later confirming his resignation. Great to have NFL analyst Ryan Clark, Jeff Saturday, and insider Dan Graziano with me now. RC, racism is not just about prejudice, but about power. I want to know how you feel, both as an intelligent human being, a former NFL player, and as a black man, about a powerful white head coach emailing this stuff to the highest-ranking executive, another white guy, from another franchise. How do you feel about that?
Let me be very clear. I feel like that if it was just the racist trope or just some racially charged emails against a black man, that Jon Gruden would still have his job. So we're not going to frame this as Jon Gruden is now or no longer the coach of the Las Vegas Raiders because he said something racist or because he feels racist. And I've talked to a lot of white men, because you mentioned Bruce Allen and obviously Jon Gruden. And the one common theme between all of those white men is that I can't believe he sent those emails. Not, I can't believe he doesn't think this way. Not, I can't believe that a man that thinks this way has been highly successful, not only in America, but in this sport that does have a ton of diversity, that does have people of all shapes, all sizes, all colors, all walks of life. Nobody is surprised that Jon Gruden feels this way. Nobody is surprised that Jon Gruden has been successful this way in this country. Nobody should be surprised that he felt comfortable enough to send those emails, because Jon Gruden has always been this man and it's always worked out for him. Jon Gruden was talking to friends that feel much like him about women, about the LGBTQ community, and about black people. So there was no one there or no one on those emails that was going to check Jon Gruden about being Jon Gruden. And Jon Gruden showed you the ultimate white privilege in his post-game press conference when asked about what he said about DeMaurice Smith. He said, I'm not racist, and everybody's going to believe he's not racist because he's been in the locker room with black people working under him. Let's be clear. There were no executives that were over him that was black. There wasn't an owner that was over him that was black. With black people working under him, you can't feel this way. And he said, I'm not racist. And he said, and I'm done talking about it. Because that's the white privilege that Jon Gruden has lived his entire life with. Jon Gruden has felt this way, lived this way, behaved this way his entire life. And what does he do? He gets Tony Dungy's team, a black man, and he wins a Super Bowl. He's coached years and years after that and never reached that height again, because Jon Gruden is truly an average coach. But being an average football coach, being someone who is racially charged in many of his tones, misogynistic, and homophobic is okay, as long as you're a white man in America. It just sucks for him that the Washington football team was being investigated for being just as trash a human as he is.
Before I get to anyone else, RC, I got to follow up with you. That was very strong. When you say, let's not just frame this like he said something or there was a racist comment or trope and then he got fired. There was a pattern of homophobic, misogynistic, and racist for 8 years. Are you suggesting, and maybe it's unknowable, that it was due to the pattern that got him fired or the addition of things in addition to racism that got him fired?
I am 100% convinced that he doesn't get fired for being racist. He doesn't get fired for saying racially charged things about D. Smith or about any other black man. I think right now where we are in this country and where we are trying to get to, when you have a guy like Carl Nassib on your team, how can you say things like that about Michael Sam? How can you say things about that, about the way the NFL forced Jeff Fisher into doing something for someone, quote unquote, that you called queer? Jon Gruden showed that it wasn't just about black people, it was about everyone. That as a human, he is disgusting. That as a human, the things that he feels, the things that he says, the way that he approaches life is not the way that you want someone that you put in charge of a locker room full of people from all different walks of life. That's not the guy you want. And it took the rest of those things to get the Raiders to the point, to get the NFL to a point where he could no longer be a coach. We weren't talking about Jon Gruden resigning when he was just making statements about DeMaurice Smith. That came after the rest was added to it.
That's all facts. And we're talking about Nassib and why it's not just one or two gay players in the NFL. We look at the percentage of the population. That's ridiculous. Of course, there are more. Why are so many closeted? Look at the culture where Jon Gruden feels very comfortable using that language in written form to an executive at another team. Dan, I'm sorry. I just wanted to follow up with Ryan there. Jeff first. How do the Raiders deal with this as a team now?
They got to go in the locker room, man. I mean, it's going to have to be united from the locker room. It's going to be a player-driven organization. And listen, when you lose your head coach in 5 weeks, whether he's fired for this or for another reason, you're still applying for 31 other teams if you're a player. And here's the truth of it. It's a harsh truth, but people need to understand this. Most players, and this includes myself, don't play for their head coach. They don't play for their general managers. As much as you want to think they're playing for the team or the city, they're playing for their families. They're playing for their wives, their children, their significant others. That's who they're playing for. And so when you lose your head coach because of this, it has to come from the locker room. Men, this is what we're going to do. We need leaders like Derek Carr or whoever else in that locker room has a loud voice that they can depend on. This is where we need to go from here. Here's how we recover, because at the end of the day, as an NFL player, you still have a job. You're still going to come to play on Sunday, and nobody's making an excuse for you. Nobody feels sorry for you. It's the way we've all been conditioned as players to compartmentalize what's going on outside. You hear it all the time. No distractions, blinders, stay focused. Well, in this situation, it actually might do some good because guys will just forget about Jon Gruden, move on, and go take it to the next step.
Kraz, it seems like there's going to be a coaching search in Las Vegas, you would think. It's a warm weather destination. It's a glamour market. It's a pretty good team, national brand. What about Bieniemy, Eric Bieniemy, who should be in a position where he can pick and choose? He doesn't have to just take the first opportunity. Speaking of the lack or the paucity of African-American head coaches, executives, et cetera. I think he'd be an upgrade here. Like, what is the possibility it's Bieniemy?
Well, he's going to be on the list, right? I mean, this is a usual suspect sort of situation. I mean, you look at Bieniemy, you look at Brian Dable in Buffalo.